Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the RSCEU. And what a stream we have for you tonight. Three brilliant matches to come to you, and starting off in the Premier tier as well. But before we get into that, introductions are in order, and actually not the evening for our newcaster today. A new face, a new voice alongside me, Max Former. Welcome to the booth.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. It's kind of cool to be here. Not gonna lie. I mean, I'm hoping this is worth being up at 5 in the morning for. I do live across on the opposite end of the planet. I am an OCE caster. We're a little bit strange, I know. Hopefully, we'll get used to each other. But yeah, high expectations because apparently this is the Premier League, the best of the best, and that's what I'm hoping to see.
Best of the best. It certainly is, at least in most people's eyes. And the teams that we will have on stream tonight, Vulcan versus Oreos, two teams that are in the middle of the pack. It's quite a tight affair in the mid-table for Premier, with just 3 games being the difference between third and eighth. And as the weeks pass, the pressure rises. And the unique thing about Premier is that there's only one match a week, only 4 points to play for, and both these teams are really looking to get back into their stride and start climbing that table again, Max.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially considering we're looking at fifth versus sixth place with Vulcan currently sitting on a 2-game edge over the Oreos. It's about as tight as you can imagine at this state of the season. What I find interesting, though, is how different the two teams seem to appear based on the stats. Vulcan, a much more controlled team, I would have to assume, just judging by the numbers that we're seeing, whereas the Oreos, probably a bit more chaotic. They have higher scoring games, they have more goals scored against them. In fact, both these teams seem to have a lot more goals scored against them than goals they've scored for themselves. So, as we are looking to get into this matchup, I'm going to be really keeping my eye on those defensive rotations and seeing how they adapt to the pressure because clearly something is going wrong for each of these sides.
Yeah, chaos is probably the right word for it. Oreos having far more saves than their opponent in Vulcan, although a slightly higher shooting percentage. So they may be a team that likes to go on the counter, likes to get in their opponent's faces and just try and farm for those mistakes, search for what's going wrong in defense or in the midfield, and then pressure and then push up the field when they're able to. But moving over to the individual player stats as well, we can break down that down a little more. And on the Vulcan side, a team that's been together quite a while. Future Goldie, Shane, people might know these names going forward into this match. And as of course coming into this team quite recently, I think they played against Finale last week in that draw. And I think it's a decent signing for them. Obviously, drawing against a team that you would hope to beat, and then as we've seen throughout the season, they didn't do all that well. They were in 10th a few weeks ago. Now coming up to fourth and then down again to fifth. They've had a bit of a run with decent results, but going up against Oreos here, another team that are pretty much in the same position as Vulcan. I'm expecting to see some fireworks here, and I actually think this one could end up in a draw as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too surprising considering how close these two teams are on the table. But if we're looking at the individual players, there are a couple here that I do want to highlight who are sort of starting to stand out a bit more. And it might not be who you think, particularly on the Oreos. I know everyone looks at those 26 goals scored by Yadam and thinks, oh my gosh, this guy looks amazing. But my eyes are actually on the player right above him in Haven. 17 assists, which is pretty much the entirety of the other two teammates combined. And that tells me a lot of this Oreos offense rides and dies on this player's capability. Yadam also seems to be the type of player who plays further back. 57 saves to go with those 26 goals. They're probably a team that try to get that second, third shot through if they get that offense kind of pounding in. So I'm expecting a lot of quick, rapid fire shots. And I'm looking at Haven to almost be the playmaker to enable the rest of the team on that Orioles side.
As my Haven himself, actually a champion in the RSC, took elite last season and then got forced up to Premier based on the MMR tiers, shifting side to side and back and forth. Everything changing there. He kind of struggled to find a solid team in Premier for the most part. But as you said, with the assist, bit of a midfield maestro could be the difference maker in this series. And I'm looking forward to the way that it goes. You do have all the players in the lobby, so we should get going as soon as possible, as I'm sure they're happy to get going, to start playing, to show us what they're capable of here. And as we are in the penultimate week of league play, this is where things start to get really interesting, where it's make and break for a lot of these teams and players. So we'll have to see how they perform. But I'm really looking forward to this series, Max.
Yeah, I'm super keen for this one. I think these two teams have the potential to be so evenly matched. I'm hoping we get to sort of see that translate. What we are seeing right now is Goldie Nice little cheat on that kickoff. Already getting that pressure through and in. Now, on the Vulcan side, I'm a little bit disappointed. The player I wanted to watch was as a senpai. Apparently, they're not in this opening game. It's sort of the rest of the crew, which actually has my eyes on Goldie instead. That first player to step up to try to make the play. They have less games with this team than everyone else. It could be a symptom of a newer player. It could result into maybe less coordinated attacks. I'm going to be very curious to see how Goldie fits in.
As am I, yeah. As I was talking about before, this is a team that I know. Oh my goodness, Yotam
Oh,
almost with an
no.
amazing double tap, and Haven comes in to finish it off, forces the double commit early on, and just 40 seconds into this first game, a great play from Oreos takes the lead. And I mean, you were looking at Vulcan, you were looking at Goldie to step up, but right now Oreos have done the exact same thing.
Well, that wasn't the only thing I saw. I was also looking to see where Goldie fits in on this team, and at the moment, apparently that was right in front of Futura. That was actually a situation where a bit of friendly fire, Futura cleared Goldie out of the path, and that's what opened up the net for the Oreos to find that goal. A little disconcerting for the Vulcan side, who in theory should be the favorites in this one. They are coming in with a 2-game lead over the Oreos, yet it's the Oreos who find that first strike.
Yeah, but the recent results, as I said, the draw that they had before, they could be doing a little bit better, and they have had a bit of a resurgence in form recently, but double commit here from the Oreos does work out for them. Shane wanted to take control of this ball, puts it to his own back ball. This could be dangerous, but there was no Oreo player there to exploit that mistake. Thankfully for them, I think it might have been a little bit of a pass that we might not have understood there, Max.
So I like to watch from an overhead view. There was no one back there. In fact, the other two players were already pressing forward to set up a situation like that. What I'm noticing already from this forward side, they play very spread out. They give a lot of space. And I'm actually a little bit surprised we're not seeing the Oreo step forward to challenge them. Because of the slow plays, because of how spread out they are, going for more of these 50-50s, tightening up the field, would benefit the Oreos greatly. Hopefully they find a bit more of that aggressive edge, because I feel like the way Vulcan's playing can be punished.
It could make things a lot more exciting, although we have to factor in the respect that these players and these teams do have for each other. Goldie with a miss forces Shane to make a quick save, an immediate shot from my Matthew, and then Haven coming in to try and do something else as well off the ceiling. And an easy clear for Shane, once again pushing it even further up into the midfield. But as you said, the mistakes, quite a few from Vulcan, whiffs that you really would not expect from this caliber of player, and just whether or not Oreos can commit to that, exploit it a little bit more. And maybe, perhaps it's intentional from Vulcan, trying to draw out the Oreos and make them make mistakes, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, perhaps. I think that might be a little bit ambitious. I'm getting more and more concerned with Goldie right now that these unforced errors might be getting into this player's head, because there are a few, but then you see something like that, a nice dribble. I know they didn't get the distance, but we know the mechanics are there. Goldie just needs to calm down, find their spot in that team, and just focus on getting those consistent touches. I liked that clear attempt. Unfortunately, defenders already in that midfield shutting it down. Vulcan, they seem to have sort of abandoned these passing plays. They're going for solo plays once again, and while it's giving them a bit more space, well, it's not till Futura actually creates all the space a chance. Goldie can't find the shot.
Great defense from Yotam there. Left in a 2v1 situation, has to wait, has to respect the aerial, and getting beaten out in that situation, but just waits for the shot, waits for the chance to clear it out, and creates a chance for his team to break out of defense. And now a passive field for Yotam to do all that he wants with it, but gets beaten out by Shane. And that's the quick defense that we were hoping to see from Vulcan. You mentioned their solo plays. They need to step up a little bit and abandoning that passing style of play. But Oreos with this lead, I mean, I really don't see them doing much on offense. They've had so many saves, Vulcan, and Oreos are happy to stop them.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what's more important for the Oreos right now is just preventing any semblance of a counterattack. They don't mind playing a bit further back in the middle of the field as long as they can control those midfield boost resources, as long as they can prevent Vulcan from actually pulling those solo plays entirely across the field. Matthews a little bit slow on the reaction, and you can see how dangerous it is when Vulcan can get past that middle field line. However, they've had few and far between opportunities to do so, and that's come from solid midfield play.
Yeah, there's always an advanced third man for Oreos. Another passive field here again. Goldie gets back just in time. They were a little disrupted on the rotation there. Vulcan managing to get away with it, but still, every time they go up the field, it's not the most controlled, it's not the most considered, and Oreos find a way to stop it. Shane attempts something here off the back board, but it's just a simple tap, and it's an easy clear for Haven to go for a shot as well. Futura's back, tries to get the bump in midair, and it doesn't quite work out, but Oreos taking that early lead is giving them a massive boon here. Matthew takes this off his own backboard and Shane tries to put it in, but it's high. Goldie comes flying in again, but Oreos once again getting out the skin of their teeth. That is just unbelievably fortunate for them.
I am so impressed with Matthew's play so far. They've been kind of acting as the third member more often than not. However, these defensive touches are very intricate. A chance for Haven to add an extra goal cushion. Not going to be able to find it. Pass back all the way to Matthews, who I do expect to down it quite easily right here. Oreos will take game number 1, and I feel like it's off the back of Matthews' defensive effort.
Yeah, very tight affair in this first game. I think what we expected, Max, considering their stats, considering their position in the standings. And I think always, not always, but most of the time, the first game is quite cagey. I think of it as like an anomaly. It's hard to tell the way the series is going to go based on that, whether or not these players are all that warmed up. I imagine they did scrim before, but so many shots on target, so many saves for both sides. I think it's going to step up a little bit. I think it's going to get a little faster. Teams are going to start taking risks, especially Vulcan, knowing that they couldn't break down Oreos with traditional styles of play and just hoping for a good passing field and a defender to not be there. But there wasn't much physical play going on either. There weren't that many bumps and demos. There was obviously boost stealing going on, but they were just sitting back in their own halves most of the time and waiting for that counter.
Yes and no. Vulcan, definitely yes. Oreos, they were a bit more willing to throw the blocker forward. Actually, more often than not, it was Haven, I believe, who was doing that role I was kind of expecting, being the first player forward, and then they would follow through and look for the bumps afterwards. They never really found contact, though, and that's an area where I should expect to see change as we continue to warm up, as we continue to get more used to the pace of this series. Furthermore, as well, Goldie, another player who I think is going to get more involved. Ooh, Shane nearly off the kickoff gets one through, but I really want to go back to Matthews again, just real quick, because the defensive touches coming out of them have been very, very intelligent and very, very defined. The backboard touch before, as well as the backboard pass off their own backboard, like each of those were high-risk touches, but they were delivered perfectly to a teammate each time, and that's what you look for out of a good defender. It's not always making the save, but it's getting the ball to a teammate where only they can follow it up. Case in point, Matthew did it again to Yadam right then and there. So as long as Matthew is the best player on the pitch, I feel like the Oreos are going to continue to lock Vulcan out.
I completely agree. It doesn't always show up in the stats just how important some of these touches and some of these passes need to be made to even prevent a shot coming through, as Yotam attempts one of his own across to Matthew, getting bumped out. And this could be a chance for Vulcan. Goldie tries to push this one forward again, but it's just popped by Yotam into the midfield. Haven's got a free aerial, tries to get this over Goldie, but he does have the boost to keep it away. There's still pressure on Oreos. Once again, recycling this ball through that midfield. They know they've got a third man rotating. They can press up and get a lot more advanced positioning. That aggressive play style has worked for them so far. But every time, it looks like Vulcan wanting to push out on that counter, just not quite getting the pace on the ball. And it seems like they start delivering for boosts. Matthew all the way across the field. Shane tries his best to keep that away, but onto the crossbar, down into the net. And once again, Oreos take the lead.
Haven's pass to Matthew was a thing of beauty, but Matthew still had to get all of that shot and was somehow able to find it over the top. Yes, that's an own goal on technicality only. In reality, there was not much the defense can do. That counterattack was far too quick. Another kickoff goal nearly going in for Vulcan. That's the third one of those. I think we need to keep our eyes on that moving forward. Vulcan's getting closer and closer, but for the time being, it's been all Oreos in this series.
Yeah, we've seen some interesting, kind of the best and the worst of kickoff strats in Premier this season. A lot of fake kickoffs, some planned things that have been going on that have really worked well. But here for Oreos, it's whether or not they can see that threat and whether they recognize it the same way that we do, knowing that their kickoffs aren't the best. But Future are trying to finish something off with a weak touch there, but it took a triple commit. Matthew once again stopping that one from going in, holding on to that fragile lead. Plenty of time left in this game, but a double whiff means that there's so much space for Shane to take a shot here. Yotam takes that one high, and you feel like they kind of rush those plays a little bit when they get that space. They obviously want to get the shot away and beat the rotation, but I feel like Vulcan could slow things down a little bit, but Haven not wanting to slow down whatsoever, takes it all the way up the field and scores a solo goal.
I'm with you with that. I mean, Vulcan tried slowing it down. The defense was able to recover. They try speeding it up. It leads to a counterattack when they can't keep things in control. And once again, Oreos is there to punish. both of the goals so far that the Oreos have scored in this second game have come from situations where Vulcan tries to increase that tempo a little bit too much. They get a bad read, and then they get punished. Oreos doing a great job on their defensive half again and again and again. This team is so comfortable playing back to front Rocket League, and I feel as if the Oreos are just currently playing a little bit faster and a little bit a step above right now against that Vulcan side. Case in point, Haven's going to find another.
I mean, you're talking about speed, but this was slow as anything. I mean, Haven just taking his time, dribbling that one, just a simple tap over the hood. He gets bumped out by Goldie, but Future expecting so much more power on that, and it was actually kind of deceptive for him to try and stop it. But yeah, Oreos firing on all cylinders, easily figuring out what the Vulcan aren't doing well enough in midfield. But as you said, every time that Vulcan try and attempt something, it seems like Oreos have an answer to it, and every time it doesn't work, they get a little bit more frustrated, and every time a goal goes in on the other side of the field, they get even more pressure. They have to push up even more, and that's working into Oreos' favor so well.
I honestly feel like that initial goal, the very first goal that the Oreos scored back in game number 1, where we saw Futura and Goldie bump into each other, has sort of been the perfect analogy of how this game is going for Vulcan. Just something doesn't feel quite right as we see that middle of the field again controlled by the Oreo side. Haven looking for the bumps, not going to find anything, including any follow-up on that setup. Eventually, Yadam has to look forward. That's a nice bump from Futura. Haven's already there to shut down the middle of the field. Fakes the next touch, now goes for the bump on Goldie, but Yodam's shot not quite accurate this time.
Seen a little bit of trouble for Oreos now on offense. I think trying to force things maybe ever so slightly, but obviously with that 3-goal lead, they don't need to worry about it. They can sit back, wait for these plays to come through. Vulcan attempting something again, a little bit too slow. Fudor trying to keep it alive, was the third man attempting the Doomsday dish. The angle's a little too tight, but they do keep the rotation up. Shane into the midfield, Goldie with no angle for the shot. Does have a flip reset, gets it over Matthew. A free shot for Future. Can he place this? It's underneath Yotam, but he stops it somehow. Shane comes flying in, and they finally take a goal in this series. Just about. Almost took 2 games of Rocket League to find it, but they force a triple commit and they get a goal.
9 minutes in, and finally we get to see Vulcan get a score, and it only took about everything they had in the tank. One more defensive touch. We were going back the other way, and I thought for a second there Haven was going to have the read. One thing of note, though, throughout all of that I need to point out and that I'm so impressed with, not to keep banging that same drum, but Oreo's defense, particularly off the backboard, is so strong. As Goldie nearly puts it in, now Yodam should be able to punish, crosses up Futura, and makes it a 3-goal game. Yet again, Oreo's running away with this series.
Such an awkward situation for Vulcan to deal with. Futura almost getting bumped out once again by Haven. Has to make a quick, panicked touch. Attempts to get back to it, and then, as you said, Goldie off the post. Yotam comes flying in, happy to take that 4th goal, and probably take the series at this point. I mean, 30 seconds, enough time to score a few goals, but Haven absolutely not wanting that to happen. Takes his 4th save of the game. There's plenty all over the side of Oreos. They've been under a lot of pressure. They've had to deal with a lot of shots, but the fact that their defense has been holding up to that is testament to the testament even to their ability to control the defense and not panic, not fall apart when things don't go their way. And that's the exact opposite situation for Vulcan. Whether they can bring it back in game 3, we shall have to see. But right now, Oreo's got the run of things, and they've been playing exceptionally well.
And the big takeaway from that second game in particular, with those 2 wins in a row, Oreos and Vulcan are now officially tied in the standings. Where we go from here, I don't know. There's just as much a chance Vulcan can bring it back. But if the season were to end right now, we're looking at a tie for 5th place between these two. And that's, exciting in its own right. However, the Oreos defense was not what I was expecting to be stepping up when we were taking a look at all the stats coming into this series. The Oreos, to me, looked like they were probably the more loosey-goosey, more wild team. And sometimes they do kind of show semblances of that, how aggressive they get on the counterattacks. There's always someone forward, always someone looking for a bump. But the problem is Vulcan hasn't had the answer. So the end result is just a very one-sided affair when we weren't expecting it to be. Pressure right now is on Vulcan to sort of withstand those counterattacks, to withstand the pressure coming from a member always going for a bump. They should be aware, all right, if they're coming at us, be ready to play a bit more defensively, be ready to play a bit further back and avoid that first attacker. But more importantly, cheat someone up the field. Try to take advantage of the over-aggression. There are windows there for Vulcan to take.
Yeah, Oreos do have to push up, especially in the early moments of these games, attempting to go for those plays. And Matthew with a nice air dribble does manage to get it across, pinches
Adam's
it. In
there.
fact, tries to get it across again, but Yotam stopped by Goldie just about on the line. And a quick counter here could mean the difference. Double demo on the other side of the field did open that up for 2v2, but a quick rotation again from Oreos does manage to clear it out. Straight back to Future is going up, has a little bit of time, has the pass option in field, goes for Goldie, they blink up, but it's not on target. Shane attempts it again, but a very short shot, very low on power there. Easy to clear out. Another one again for Shane, puts that on target, but Yotam easily clears it out. And it's just that plan B, it feels like, for Vulcan isn't working. When they get the shots away, when they get the passes away, it seems to work. But as soon as they bring in that third man, things start to fall apart for them. And as we see here, once they start getting a bit too aggressive, Oreos push back out into the midfield, but holding on so far in this first minute of Game 3.
I feel like Vulcan, they're not following through with a lot of these shots. They're really good at just taking shot, and their rotation is clean. But if they go a little bit deeper, they can run disruption. Matthews takes advantage of the pass from Haven. I'm not sure how Haven saw that opening through the traffic, but you take what you're given, and the Oreos are going to take a 1-goal lead.
Being that aggressive first man can really go against you if the 50 doesn't work, but that was absolute perfection from Haven. And then the recovery to get it back into midfield, knows that he's got a teammate waiting for him. I mean, it's probably communicated anyway. But yeah, the first chance for them, the passive field, easy finish. And Yotam trying to slow this one down, attempting the 50, trying to dunk over Shane, but stopped at the first hurdle. And Matthew trying to keep all that pressure. Future with a free shot, puts it across over to Haven. This is off the backboard. A free shot for Shane. A demo on the line meant that was an open net, but he hits the post. Does not manage to tie the game. And those are the chances that you have to take, Max. Those are the ones that you're basically given. Future attempted something special with a double tap, but I mean, when you get those open nets, you've got to shoot straight. You've got to shoot on target. So I want to say that Vulcan have what's in them to bring this back to a 2-2 draw, but at the moment, Oreos happy to hold on to what they've got and prevent any sort of easy chance for Vulcan to take.
Oh, that was an awkward touch from Matthew, though, quickly recovered by Yotam. However, I like how Vulcan trying to take advantage of it. The second Matthew kind of dribbled that one out immediately, all three Vulcan players start pressing forward. However, the rest of the Oreos, they're able to sit back, hold that defensive line, and again, this team's so comfortable on their back half. It's got to be so frustrating for Vulcan right now, as we do see a play back towards the middle of the field. Goldie is going to be the one looking for it. Tried to dish it to someone. Anyone doesn't find anything. Yotam may have disconnected. We have an AFK car in the middle of the pitch.
It's unfortunate to see. Oreos do have the lead. Oh, he is back. He was just taking a little bit of a break there. A power nap to give him the energy to finish off this series. Somehow they didn't score in a 3v2 situation, Vulcan. But now Yotam here with a chance of going off the bat. But Future's going to miss the ball. And another one. He drops down, but it's taken away anyway. This might have actually been an own goal from the looks of things. I'll have to check that out. But Yotam wasn't even playing for about 30 seconds. And somehow comes back and scores this one. Yeah, Shane tries to put it away. Cannot find the angle. And a 2-goal lead for Oreos. It's going quite the same way as the second game.
Okay, hold on. Do you count that as an own goal? Because that ball was halfway in the net when Shane made contact.
I think it's already on target. Yeah, I think it counts as his goal. Shane attempted to clear and it didn't quite work.
Well, Shane also just attempted to score a goal and straight up missed the ball, unfortunately. Vulcan, things are going from bad to worse right now. Another swing and a miss. The unforced errors are punishing, and it leads to yet another goal. This is a disastrous showing, I'm starting to think, from a team that was sitting in our top 6.
As I said last game, every time that you try to score a goal and you miss just ever so slightly, the margins are so thin, especially in Premier. The frustration rises, and then every time your opponent scores, it gets even worse. And it's just whether or not they've got the grit, they've got the mental fortitude to come back into this one. They do have the time, but they're getting beaten by beautiful mechanical play. Haven attempting to find his first goal of this game. Get on the score sheet just as if teammates have, but Vulcan's defense has been here and has been there for some of the plays, just not enough of them, and their offense just disappearing, it seems like sometimes. Future attempted something, but it's against 3 players, and even though they've got a second and a third man, they're still, oh, never mind, ignore me. From my angle, I thought Avon was going to make that touch, but they do manage to bring one back, and with a little bit of time on the clock, they're forcing Oreos into these triple commits. There's decent first man aerials. It's just whether or not they can find the finishing to actually bring this one back.
I want to highlight Futura's reset actually on that initial pass. Unfortunately, he kind of got lost in the wayside by the time that goal went through, but it was a very nice setup coming from the Vulcan side. And if they have to pull out Met like that in order to get the goals, I'm all for it. But at that same token, I did highlight Haven as a player to watch coming into this one. They have not disappointed. I think every team wants a Haven on their side. No, Shane and Goldie each with chances. Neither can put it through. Goldie, another shot is going to be a bit too slow. I'll get back to this point later. Right now, we're in the final minute of play, and once again, Oreos, they're knocking on the Vulcan door. A goal here would put Game 3 and this series out of reach.
And it's harsh to mention for Shane, 5 shots on the board, and a lot of those have been quite open nets for him to take a pop at, but just a little high, just a little wide. Sometimes it just isn't working out. But Yotam always in that midfield, pressuring them. Another one for Matthew, forces the commit. It's going to drop straight down, gets another touch into mid. Haven side flips, and it fakes out Shane. Going back up the field, Goldie gets the chances. I think it was, Futura took out Yotam, that third man, and they do bring it back to 1 goal. Could they get something off kickoff here? Could they bring this back to overtime?
They've been getting closer and closer with each kickoff, Vecta. It's something we highlighted before. If you're going to get a kickoff goal, now is that moment. Keep your eyes on the cheat. Watch for Futura on this one. Kickoff. It's thrown. It's actually more towards Shane. Futura goes for the boost, leaving Shane alone for the ball. They got the touch. It's in front of the net. But that boost instead of ball play may have cost them an opportunity. 15 seconds left, and it is Vulcan desperate for the equalizing shot.
Perfect position for Vulcan, but that 50 is not going to help their chances. Matthew, the ghost hit. Goldie just put it high, and Haven's taking his time to clear this one out. Shane demos the third man. A chance for Futura to put this off the backboard. It's going to drop down. Haven's going to hit it to the side wall, and Vulcan are not going to have their chance to equalize. Oreos take Game 3 and will take the series. And at least a 3-1, but as it's been going so far, if Vulcan don't start Game 4 on a high, they don't get the lead first, which they haven't in this entire series, and I really see this being a 4-0 sweep, which I did not expect to see.
Especially when you take a look at the shot differential throughout the series. I mean, Vulcan has put way more shots on target than the Oreos, but it's just been the Oreos comfortable in defensive situations unless you're pulling off things like reset passes off the backboard. Okay, yeah, that will get anyone. However, earlier in the series, it was Matthew who was kind of stepping up as like the standout player for me. Throughout the series, it's kind of changed more to Haven, which I was expecting. And if you have a player like Haven on your team, do not let them go. Do whatever you can to keep them, because every time we see Haven with possession of the ball going up the field, they're always drawing at least 2 defenders towards them. And that's been another key component to these counterattacks. They're always forcing situations of a 2v1 with the first challenger to get enough for the 1v1 for the second, and then a 1v none for the third. And it's so much of that off of the Haven individual mechanical plays when going from back to front. These players are rare who can do this as consistently as we've seen Haven so far in this series. It's been impressive to watch, especially when you consider Haven always follows through looking for bumps and demos. Case in point, we saw a demo right there. It wasn't from Haven this time. I digress. Oreos, they look like a complete team, and they do so well playing around this young gun.
Champions pedigree, a winning attitude for Haven, and now attempting something special again. Gets the bump on Futura, does open it up for Yotam. Goldie just about stops this, but Futura already jumped, and Matthew with a free touch puts it below 2 players, and once again, Oreos start with a lead quicker than they have in the entire rest of the series. By 6 seconds, in fact. I think it was 40 seconds, the first goal they had in the first game, so it's just continuing the same way.
And who set it up and how? It was Haven. It was Haven with another solo play across the field. Drew 2 defenders initially. The second defender was able to rotate back into the goal, but by that stage, the damage was done. And by the time the ball gets to the third member, it's going to be a goal. The net is open. I am so in love with Haven's play style right now, and it is elevating the Oreos to that next step, which is carrying them through. Although Futura has a chance, Matthews still is that wall on defense. And once again, the Oreos hold on.
Bit of a midfield battle going on. Vulcan trying to create something, but again, every time they attempt a shot or a pass, there's always a red player right in front of them trying to prevent it. And Goldie, a little bit of a missed touch, just managed to get it past Haven, but Yotam, easy clear back to the third man, and Futura takes his time, takes control. Again, challenged by Yotam. Where are they finding the boost? Haven trying to create something once more, does force one player out, and Yotam going for a double tap, gets it off the back wall again, almost gets the triple tap! It goes off a defender, but it counts. Absolutely beautiful mechanics from Yotam, and he takes a 2-goal lead for his team. Once again, that is phenomenal.
I'd like to think Shane was just showing some respect right there. Like, all right, that double tap was sick. Here, let me help you out. I'll just tap that one in for you. My goodness, what a goal. Yotam has been kind of quiet for the Oreos until that point when it comes to the mechanical ability. Speaking of which, Avon again just making defenders look foolish every time they dribble the ball. This is Oreos. They're getting better and better, it feels like, as the series is progressing. And unfortunately for our friends in Vulcan, I just don't see them coming back in this one.
It's unlikely, and I mean, I thought it was going to be unlikely to see from Oreos, considering their position in the standing, considering their stats. Haven with a double reset doesn't manage to get it through the first man, but you can see the confidence. It's radiant. They're clearly happy to play at this level. They're so comfortable, and they know exactly what they're doing when they're given that time and space, what they're capable of. And Vulcan just bamboozled at the moment. Another one here, even attempted something off the ceiling, trying to get it back down to his teammate. A 1-2 passive play doesn't work out, but every time that they do this, it's a little bit more disrespect leveled at Vulcan, because they aren't able to keep up. But Shane does manage to bring one back. There is still plenty left in this game, and the mistakes are possible for Oreos. No one is perfect. Oh, that's a great pass down actually by Goldie for Shane to take a pop at. And as much as Shane hasn't been shooting well this series, he does manage to take a goal for Vulcan there, and possibly a way back for the last game of the series.
Yeah, Shane absolutely cooked that ball too. Top right, perfect positioning. I was a case though, as you mentioned, Oreos being a little bit disrespectful. They had 3 members playing on the forward half of the field before that counterattack came through. So naturally, Vulcan was eventually able to find the goal in that situation, as I would expect from teams of these caliber. And that's something I want to emphasize. I know I've been a little bit harsh on Vulcan so far, but it's because, you know, you're a top half team in the Premier Division. You've been on a bit of a hot streak. You've come in with, you know, some expectations, I suppose, for lack of a better word. And so far, it's kind of been the Oreos who have been rising to it. It's nice to see Vulcan remind us, yes, they still are that strong team. Yes, Shane can cook some mean shots sometime. And it also should be worth noting that Azza, probably the strongest player on this Vulcan lineup, currently not playing in this match right now. I'm not sure the circumstance why, but I do imagine had we been seeing their full starting lineup, or at least the one that's had the most experience with the team, I think we might be looking at a different result. As it stands, once again, here comes Oreos.
And they don't manage to get anything from that, but again, Haven taking this one up into the air, beaten out by Goldie. Future's already up the field, just getting one off the backboard. Shane attempting something, but again, that first man, Matthew, always there, always just aware of the threat, always cognizant of what's going to happen, where the ball is going to end up. And Haven with a pretty double tap just put this back to the mid, but no threat from Oreos. Not wanting to throw too much into the offense at this point, knowing that they have been beaten.
Open net.
Demo opens it up for Haven, puts it wide. It was an unfortunate miss. That could be the opening that Vulcan were looking for. Those mistakes we've seen more on defense than offense, but at the moment, Vulcan just trying to scramble it back out of their half. They're having so much trouble getting that first pass through. That Shane does manage to do it, but it's just an early shot that's easily dealt with by the defense. And as if it feels like they need to get these, they need to get lucky with the wayward 50s and the pinches and whatnot. But most of the time, that's not readable, and it's just not going to work for Vulcan most of the time.
37 seconds. If the teams ever go back and watch the replays, I want Vulcan to go back to 37 seconds and watch Shane and just barely miss out on a bump that would have opened the doorway for the equalizing goal. It was there, but the focus was on boost instead of the play, and it let one through. That said, it might not matter because Futura just tied this game with 13 seconds left. Perhaps Vulcan can steal one away.
I feel like anything but a quick kickoff goal for either side here could be leading us to the first OT of this series. They're expecting far more than just the last game. We might not even see it, but a big neutral kickoff does pinch into the ceiling. Goldie here has a lot of time to put this up. A wayward first touch does mean that Haven can take this away. It's in the corner. He's going to flick it over one. Has a bit of boost to keep this alive. He's going to pop out of the corner again. Future puts it down almost back into the mid, but we do see our first overtime of the series. 2-2 for either side. And you feel like here Vulcan really need to win to salvage anything from this series.
As we take a look at what Matthews is going to try to pass back to here, it's going to be taken away from Futura for the time being. Eventually, Goldie will set themselves up again. Futura looking for the bump on Matthews, but they don't find it. As a result, the goal is shut down once again. Futura another chance, doesn't get the dunk, but Goldie in position will slow it down. Matthews in a tough spot, does recover for the save. Shane does cross things up, and Vulcan gets one back. It's not a sweep today. And with that win on the fourth game, guess what? These two teams finished tied in the standings.
Yeah, just as Goldie was attempting that flip reset, didn't work out. But as we saw so much from Haven throughout that series, it draws out the defenders, it forces the 50, it forces the defense to make a play. And then Shane coming in, redeeming himself. It feels like his shooting accuracy wasn't all the best
Yeah.
this series, but he's come back to the fore here in Game 4, and it's gotten them a one game which was crucial for them, as you said, still tied up in the standings. And it feels like with this being the penultimate week, with it being the last match, well, the second to last match that these players will play, only 4 more games, only 4 more points to play for. This was crucial for Oreos to take a sweep. And now Vulcan managing
Yeah.
to bring it back. A great performance, but you got to give it to Oreos. They played phenomenally well.
They really, really did. But that overtime goal might be something that costs them. Again, if Oreos get that win, if they get that sweep, they have a 2 game lead over Vulcan at the end of this one. But because Vulcan was able to get that last goal of the series, they do finish the day tied. And that makes things very spicy moving forwards, especially again, considering that wasn't the strongest Vulcan lineup. So to sort of come into a situation at a roster disadvantage and walk away still tied with what could be one of their biggest rivals moving forwards, I'd call that an okay performance. Obviously, if you're on Oreos, you're happy. You went 3-1. You won your series. You climbed back up there. You're now tied for fifth. That's great and good, but there's always going to be that what if, especially if things start to go against them next week.
And we do get to that point, of course, Max, that we have to pick out one single player from the Orioles side. We talked about all three of them throughout that series, what they were able
Man.
to do in each area of the field, but we do have to pick one out in particular. My personal vote, it would have to be Haven. The way that
Yeah.
you G'd him up, the way that you talked about him so much,
Yeah.
and the things that he did, that you facilitated on the field, mostly in offense, but a little bit in defense as well. I would have to call him the MVP, and I'd love to get an interview with him.
I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement as well. It was initially going to be I Matthews, but the more the Oreos got into their groove and the more they were actually able to find avenues to be on the attack, it came off the play from Haven, which is what we kind of predicted back at the start of the day, right? We said, okay, if the Oreos are going to be getting these high goal games, it's going to be off of that Haven setup. And it was really great to see how Haven sets the team up. And a lot of times it was these dribble plays across the middle of the field where the first defender would miss, it would draw the ire of the second, and then the rest of the team would be able to sort of play that numbers advantage following up. It was fantastic stuff, and I don't think we'd see the Orioles have that same kind of success without that playmaking ability, and that is why they do deserve that MVP award.
Yeah, we're talking about I think it was the midfield maestro
Mhm.
for Oreos was Haven. I believe it was in the stats. I
Yep.
think I'm
It
remembering that
was.
right. Yeah,
It was.
and that's exactly what we saw. So much of Rocket League is just about threat, about making your opponent think that something is going to happen, and even if it doesn't, then it's still a chance. There's still
Yeah.
the opportunity for your teammates to come in. That's the thing about 3v3. You can trust your teammates, and you have to communicate that, but sometimes it just works out in favor of yourself, whatever happens. So I'm glad that we got to cast that series, Max. I'm glad that it didn't end in a sweep. I feel like sweeps are a little. Sometimes it's not as accurate to what was actually happening in the series. The games can be a lot closer, and it doesn't show what actually happened. But it ending in a 3-1, I think Vulcan deserved at least one game from that series, and I'm glad to see that they took one. But yeah, if we can't get Haven into the booth, then probably I Matthew. If we couldn't get anyone else, if we can't get any into for an interview, that'd be unfortunate. But I'd love to see him into the booth with us. And looking at the Premier Tier, obviously this being your first series
Yep.
casting in the RSC, Max, I'd just like to ask you. In fact, let's interview you, Max, while we're waiting for Haven.
Yeah, sure,
do,
sure. Yeah, let's
do
do it.
you
Let's
feel
do
like
it. Oh no,
Premier
we
is?
got some. We got
Oh no,
Haven. We got
we got him. Haven's in the booth.
good.
He's here, the guy that we picked out in that series as the MVP. Oreos taking it 3-1. I think for me, just overall question: how are you feeling after that series, Haven?
I can't be mad. Like, we got 3-1. At least we won. We felt like we should have swept it, but I mean, we'll take the dub.
It's
So
great.
my
That's yeah.
question's if I sorry to jump in here, but I have a question in terms of adjusting to Vulcan's playstyle because it felt like in game number one they were giving you so much space to work with, and that you weren't really capitalizing on it right away. But then as we moved to games 2 and 3, that's when you really started to pop off and took advantage of that middle of the field, which always seemed to be open to you. Was that something that you recognized as a team? Was it one individual who called it out? Hey, we can probably play a bit more forward against them, or was it just sort of the natural flow of the series?
I think it's more that, like, obviously, first game is always a bit scuffed. So I think it was just more that we didn't have to adjust. It was just we needed to get used to playing with each other again. And then as soon as we did that, things started working out. And at the end of the third game, we felt like we had this in the bag, and I think we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, so we conceded a goal. And then last game, obviously, I think we just panicked a little bit too much, and that's why we lost.
Going into that series, we picked you out as that assisting player, the one that was able to facilitate a lot of things in the midfield and especially on offense as well. And that's the way it went. Going forward further into the to league play, obviously only 1 week left, only 4 games left to play for. What are your overall ambitions for this season? Obviously, I imagine you're going to want to take it all and get into one of those top 4 spots in the table. But like realistically looking at the other teams around you, what kind of situation do you expect to see at the end of league play?
I don't expect to win because, well, we have Vibe in, which recently got picked up by Wild, and there are Goats, really good people as well. So I don't think we're going to win at the end of the season, but I think we might be able to get top 4, maybe top 3. That's like what I'm hoping for.
There's plenty of teams around you looking to take those spots as well, but I think like tempering your expectations is probably a good idea considering the players that are in Prem. But I'm looking forward to see your rise up the table continue again as you beat out a strong opponent in Vulcan here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on that note, I might throw in one more question. I want to throw in a fun question for you, Haven, before we send you on your way to celebrate, as much as you can with that 3-1 victory. Obviously, now sitting in 5th place. I noticed throughout a lot of that game, it felt like Matthews is kind of more of your defensive player and like the one who's playing further back and had some great defensive passes. Who's the one doing the shot calling in those situations? Like, is he calling, all right, throwing out, or is someone else more of the shot caller on your team? Like, who is the one who is calling the shots in your squad?
I feel like that's definitely our big boy Yotam. He's the one that
Yotam is.
plays. Yeah, he plays the game the
Okay.
most out of all of us. Me and Matthew were not taking the game as serious as we used to, because us three we used a team, but then we split up, and yeah, now we're just doing RC together and making the best out
Okay,
of that.
cool. All right. I thought I was convinced it was Matthews watching it just because he seemed to be the one who's like always he seemed to be positionally at least the field general at times. So I don't know. It's good to see that Yotam's actually the one pulling the strings. But, and either way, again, congratulations on your victory and good luck for your future matches next week.
Thank you, thank you.
And that was Haven, the elite champion. Actually, he's already got a trophy in RSC last season. So congratulations to him in that victory, and then looking to push forward in the next week as well. But that has been the series of Vulcan versus Oreos, and it was a great one to start with. I feel like, Max, it's great to have you in the
Yep.
booth. A lot of experience with you, and I can't wait to see you even more. Maybe not as early in the morning next time, but we'll have to
We'll
see.
see. I think it always is going to be early in the morning. Also, could I just like real quick? I know no one can see this right now. Shout out to B-Shake for going out there and getting some of the OCE skins. I see your Ground Zero Octane. A little sad as an Octane, but yeah, you know what? We'll make do. Any love for the Oceanic region? Yeah, big love from me. So shout out to B-Shake, wonderful producer.
There you go. He is a wonderful producer and, of course, wonderful caster as well when he gets the chance. So that has been this series. We are not done, of course. In about 15-20 minutes, we will be going forward into a major matchup between Thanatos and Firefox. Sadly, Max will be leaving us, and not so sadly, but it will be joining us. But it has
I
been a
got a
great
bed.
series
It's
to
right
cast.
back behind
Yeah,
that green
he's got to
screen.
go sleep. So, so good night to you,
Thank you.
Max.
Thank you.
And it's been a great cast. So, yeah, we will see you soon.
Thank you.
I hope you know. I hope you know. I hope you know. Yeah. I hope you know that you are on my mind. Promise I'ma waste no time. Got down, but now I climb. Said I wouldn't make it, feeling so lost. I feel caught up in the matrix. Have to keep waiting.